Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get ourselves assembled. What we'll do is we want to announce something that has been in the works literally since day one of this administration, and then open it up to any questions that you all might have. We'll be happy to answer questions unrelated to this, but only after we have thoroughly exhausted this. And if you don't have good questions related to this, I may not be able to take any questions. I don't know. But I do want to make the focus of this in large measure the workforce initiative. The fact that from the very beginning, our administration has recognized, part of it driven by the fact that as a small business owner, I knew it from personal firsthand experience, the fact that the Commonwealth of Kentucky needs a well-trained workforce that is ready and able to enter into productive contribution to the economy of the Commonwealth. This is what we are about. In this workforce initiative that has been undertaken, and the legislation that came about as a result of an incredible bipartisan effort. I want to make sure that is clear and understood, and that my appreciation and that of our administration is understood as well. There were many people in the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats alike, who worked together to make sure that this happened, because there is not a community represented by anybody, RD or otherwise, that does not need and want more job opportunities for their citizens in their counties, in their districts, in the entire Commonwealth. It doesn't know any particular geographic location. So to that extent, we have from the beginning focused on how do we create a more well-trained workforce? How do we ensure that we don't continue to hear, as almost always the very first issue that businesses bring up when they're looking to expand or looking to move to Kentucky, the fact that they worry whether or not they'll be able to find a quality and deep pool of well-trained and well-qualified individuals. That has been the number one concern of so many employers. Can they indeed find people that are trained and ready to work in the 21st century? There are a couple of things that drive this, and before I turn things over to some of the others that are behind me, Secretary Heiner, Secretary Dunnigan, et cetera, I want to make sure that we're clear about what are some of the broad themes. There are 47th lowest level of workforce participation is Kentucky. In other words, there are only 3 states in America that have a smaller percentage of their workforce engaged in terms of the percentage of the population. So we're 47th in the nation. There are about 47% of able-bodied working age men and women, somewhere in the 45 to 47% of able-bodied working aged men and women who are ages 18 to 64, who do not go to work every day. Some of it's lack of opportunity, some of it's lack of incentive. But the reality is it's not healthy, it's not productive. If we were just on average with the United States as a whole, there would be every day 140,000 more Kentuckians going to work every single day. That's important to understand, because if we could have 140,000 more highly trained and ready to work individuals, how much better would that be for our employers? It would be fantastic. And so the intent is to come up with a program that allows people to be trained starting while they're still in high school, to find paths, because only 6 out of every 10 students in Kentucky pursue any kind of post-secondary education. 4 out of 10 don't. And of those 40% that don't, only 2% ever get any kind of post-secondary certification or anything. So we have fully 38 out of every 100 students that graduate from high school that don't get any kind of training or any kind of education beyond a basic high school education. So what we have done, and what you'll hear about in a moment, is how we have taken this legislation, we have tied in all the people who are involved and need to be involved, from our high schools to our post-secondary educations, our universities, our business community, and our elected officials. And we are asking them to work together to jointly submit applications. And we are going to be announcing this pre-application process. How will it work? How will this $100 million get to be utilized? This is what you're going to hear about in the moments ahead. So we wanted you to know that this process has continued, like so many others, to move forward. And it is our intent now to unveil exactly what the next steps and stages are. I want to turn things over to our Secretary of Education and Workforce Development. Hal Heiner has been working tirelessly on this effort. He is a man who, frankly, long before he was in this position, has had a passion for this as a businessman, as a citizen who cares about education deeply. He has decades of experience involved in dealing with this, even before he was in a position politically to lead the Commonwealth in this effort. And he has taken this on with a sense of urgency and professionalism and qualification, the likes of which has just flabbergasted me and so many others. It's impressive, and I'm grateful for the fact that he has been leading this charge. So I'd like to turn things over to Hal Heiner.
Well, this is a historic and exciting day announcing this initiative. And let me tell you why it's so exciting. It's not exciting to just the group standing up here or people that are here today, but for employers and Kentuckians all across the state. 2 days don't go by in my office that I don't hear from an employer saying, Hal, I need workforce. We've got everybody in our entire facility on a minimum 48-hour shift, 48-hour work week, and we can't fill those jobs when a person leaves. Or I hear, Hal, we've built 20% of the facility that we intend to have in Kentucky. We've got the pad next door for the next 20%, but we're not starting it until we can find the workforce we need, the level of educations and skills necessary for us to be successful with this next phase. It's all across Kentucky. Today is a major step, a major initiative, the Work Ready Skills Initiative, to ramp up capacity of facilities, capacity of equipment, in order to train Kentuckians, both students and adults, for the tens of thousands of great jobs that are available in Kentucky. Good jobs, jobs that individuals can support themselves and a family, that are going unfilled today in a whole host of sectors. As you may remember from the legislative session, we're delighted to see support from both sides of the aisle for this initiative. We saw it in House Bill 626, and this initiative being announced today models very closely to the House Bill 626 plan. There'll be the same 9-member board that's included in that House bill that will review applications from partnerships all across the state that I'll talk about in just a minute. Our Education Workforce Development Group, we will work with KEDFA, Kentucky Economic Development, finance assistance staff for oversight on the process and the expenditure of the funds. The application process starts today. It's a multi-step process. The first step is a 30-day pre-application process where we are encouraging partnerships to come forward. In order to be successful, it's going to require a partnership between secondary institutions, post-secondary institutions, employers in the community, local elected officials, and very importantly, employers. So the successful applicants will have all of those pieces to move forward. And it's important that each member be there. It's important that the local elected officials be involved so that it has sustainability long term, so that these investments are not wasted, so that they are highlighted as they talk with students and adults in their community. It's important for employers because we want the training to be focused on the needs, the regional needs, filling the jobs that are available today so people can get the training, whether it's 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 2 years, 4 years. They can get that training and move right into good paying jobs. It's important for both secondary and post-secondary because we want, ideally, the training facilities would train students by day and adults by night. Ideally, we would move adult education into our technology centers and community colleges in greater numbers than we have today so that individuals can both acquire skills and education at the same time, so as they complete their GED, they can move right into the workforce and make a job they can support themselves and a family. That application process starts today. The pre-applications will be due in about 30 days. All of this information will be on our website, EWDC, acronym for our cabinet, .kentucky.gov. There'll be next week, there'll be a webinar that'll go into details, have opportunities for question and answer for communities and employers across the state on what really the goals of this initiative are. There'll be 2 of those next week. We'll have a 30-day pre-application process. There'll be a 1-week review by the 9-member board, and those that match up with the goals for this initiative will be invited to go to the full application process. That'll be another 30-day period. Again, the review and decision by the committee, 9-member committee, and our hope, our goal is that the funds are available in November. There's also will be a public scoring piece to this. We will be announcing before the pre-application a scoring matrix that outlines what's important going forward, and public scoring as well on who does move forward. So we're excited to announce this. We're excited not just for ramping up education, not just for ramping up training, but its effect on Kentuckians and their ability to acquire the education and skills necessary for the jobs that we have today and the jobs we look forward to. I'm certain that when this is fully implemented, we've already heard from enough individuals that probably 3 times this amount of money could be spent effectively. So we're going to be real particular on where those dollars are spent. But I'm certain when these dollars are out there, we'll start meeting the workforce needs here in Kentucky. Thank you.
Eric, do you want to?
Sure. Well, thank you for this time. And what's exciting to me is this is more than just about workforce development. This is about growing the economy of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. You know, as the Secretary of Economic Development is really pretty simple. It gets down to 3 key pillars to our success in economic development. The first is location. And what that really means is access to market. Can companies in Kentucky get their products and services to their customers from Kentucky? And the key to that is Kentucky's blessed with an absolute fantastic location. That's why we're so successful in manufacturing, distribution, and service and technology. The second pillar to that's business environment. Are we in Kentucky creating a business environment where our companies can be successful? As government agencies, are we staying out of the way? And a big step in improving that is our red tape reduction initiative that we kicked off here recently. That's a way for government to look at ourselves and figure out, how do we create a better business environment for our companies to succeed? How do we get government out of the way of our business community so that they can grow and grow our economy? And the final pillar to our success is workforce development. And I'm excited about this program because as tools in the toolbox go, this is one of the best programs and best tools we've ever been granted. This is a way for us to continue to improve our educational delivery system. We have great people in Kentucky, hardworking people in Kentucky, people that want to go to work every day. This is a way for us to improve their skill sets, a way for us to find a way to employ them with these employers, these quality employers in our state, and prosper and grow with our economy. So from an economic development standpoint, this is the key to our success. Every state is struggling with finding available talent. Every state is trying to find ways to improve their educational delivery system. This is a huge leap forward for Kentucky, and from a competitive standpoint, from an economic development competitive standpoint, this puts us in the lead. And now it's up to us to capitalize on this partnership and truly take advantage of the economic development opportunities before the Commonwealth. I applaud Secretary Heiner for his leadership on this. Our team has been supporting him along the way, and he has been an awesome leader to get this done for us. I applaud the governor for planting this seed back when he came into office, and I applaud the legislature for helping us to get this approved and get this money in place. Now it's on us to form the partnerships, both locally and at the state level, to make this a success, to make the right investments, and to improve our workforce delivery system. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. The one thing I'll say, just to follow up this, and then we'll open up to questions. I was just speaking with Mike Nemes. Mike is our Deputy Secretary for the Labor Cabinet and is here representing that cabinet. Obviously, our Labor Cabinet is very instrumentally involved in this as well. And we were just talking about the little voice that we're hearing through the curtain behind us. This is why we're doing this. We want that child, assuming they're not a tourist, and even if they are, we hope they move here, but we want that child to have a job. You know, every one of us most of us have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. The reality is we want them to have opportunity. It's been said, you've heard me say it, that without vision, the people will perish. Without vision, an economy will perish. Without vision, a state will not succeed. In our vision for the Commonwealth of Kentucky is that we have the most work-ready individuals, young and old alike, in the entire United States of America. There is great geopolitical unrest in the world. You find many people out of concern starting to look at North America like they never have in terms of having a foothold, and they want to come here. Many are coming for the first time and putting business here so that they can have a beachhead here in the last stable continent in the world. And one of the things they look for when they come to a state is several things we have as an advantage. We have geography, we have seasonality that's good, we have logistical capabilities and a central location. We have those already. Do we have, as good or better than anyone else, the type of workforce that will allow them to come here with confidence, not only for the day they get here, but for the next 20% and the next 20% and the next 20% of growth that comes to their respective companies? That's what they're looking for. We hear it every single day. I do not meet with a company, with almost no exception, where the topic does not come up almost immediately. And that is, I've got to find good, qualified people who are skilled, who are sober, who will show up on time and have the ability to help our company grow. If we get this right, and we will get this right, because we must get this right, then the Commonwealth of Kentucky will be the manufacturing hub of excellence, the logistical hub of excellence, the service delivery hub of excellence in the United States of America, not only in the immediate years, but for generations to come. That is our goal. It will start today. We will expend these $100 million based on the right dollars being spent in the right places. They will not be driven by politics. They will not be driven by location. They will be driven by the people in the community, the secondary schools, the principals and superintendents working with the colleges and technical schools in their communities, together with the elected officials and together with the business community. Those four constituencies working together, applying for these dollars and employing those dollars so that they will grow and grow quickly. That is what we're about, and we're excited by the fact that the best is yet to come. Any questions on anything? Yes, Dan? There's not. That's a great question. The question was, is there a cap on the award that can be given out of this $100 million? There is not, but it would be unlikely that I can conceive of a situation where there would be more than 20 to 25% of it at the absolute most spent on any given project. It's not to say that could not happen, but it's more likely that we will see as many as 50 or 100 or more quality applications, some of which may simply be $100,000. They might be $1 million. They might be 20 or 25, but I think there will be far more four and small 5-digit, or I guess, small hundreds of thousands or low millions rather than double-digit millions. I think, again, without presuming on their behalf what the actual criteria are, this is what we want to see. We want to see a good return on the taxpayer's investment. We are approaching it from a business standpoint, a business perspective. And there is never the ability, people can promise all the jobs they want, and you know as well as I have how many promises come and they don't come to fruition. Other times people promise 10 jobs and 3 years later there's 400. So you never know how it might work. But our intent is to look for a good return on investment. It's why the people on this board looking at it from a political but a regional, a business perspective. How can we get the best bang for the buck for the taxpayer? And so we want to ensure that there's job growth, but we want it to be deep. We want the roots to go deep. We're not looking for a quick flower. We want there to be a deep taproot, because if there is a deep taproot, it will flower for year after year after year. That's what we want. We want to transform the educational landscape, the workforce development landscape in Kentucky, in that immediate community and for generations to come. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Sure, let me give a couple of examples. Part of the catalyst for this, I was approached by a group of business leaders from a community who came and said, listen, we're hiring collectively thousands of people, but here's what happens. Whoever's hiring first is poaching from the rest of us. These are people who are all representing, tens of thousands of employees who sat actually down in room 110 with me many months ago, 6+ months ago. and said, we need help. Because if I'm offering an opportunity to hire 2,000 people and I'm stealing them from all these people, I'm creating a ripple effect of problems. And so one example would be to come up with a program where certain skills, certain certifications, certain training that's frankly common to all of them or most of them can be offered in their community. Not just to their own existing employees, but to young people who are graduating from high school. But as was noted by Secretary Heiner, this is important to understand. This is not just for kids entering the workforce for the first time. This is for adults in those communities to be able to go back and get the skills necessary to have good paying jobs in their community. And so with companies like that, we would work with a local university, a local one of the KCTCS campuses, whatever the case might be. Whatever the case is, we will work with a local institution of education together with that business community to develop a program, maybe using existing facilities. It might involve, we'll see what kind of applications we receive, it might involve building a freestanding facility that is funded in some way by these folks. An expectation that we have, that we will be looking for, is involvement from that business community. It is involvement to the degree that they actually have skin in the game. Maybe it's equipment. Maybe it's their lending expertise in terms of training. Maybe they are providing some of the overhead costs. But our expectation is that the private sector has skin in the game. One other small example that I could give is that we have programs in northern Kentucky, for example. There's a program that offers the German apprenticeship program. It's taught through Gateway, which is one of our public university campuses. They graduated 24 individuals. Every single one of them had a job before they graduated. Why not have it 240? Why not 2,400? There is the potential for that eventually. We're not going to try to get ahead of ourselves, but we're going to leverage things that exist to try to scale them, and we are agnostic with respect to what those ideas. These are just two examples, but truth be told, there's many others that I can't even conceive of that I know we're going to hear as a result of this application process. We look forward to it. Yes, sir. Boy, I'll tell you, it's a great question, and the question is, what kind of opportunities have already passed us by as a result of not being ready? I'll give you one example. It's heartbreaking to me. I just wish that we could get a mulligan on this in about 2 years, and that is Volvo. Volvo is an automobile manufacturer. We're all familiar with the name. They came and looked at Kentucky, was, if not the first, one of the very first places they came. They liked all of the advantages we have, geographic, season, logistic, etc. They wanted that. They needed that. There were two things. The fact, truth be told, that we're not a right-to-work state was the biggest obstacle, because we're the only one in the South that isn't. That was the biggest reason. But it was also their concern that would we be ready with workforce development? They ultimately narrowed it down to the Final Four. We were still in the Final Four, even though they had pretty much eliminated us over the right-to-work issue. But they even then wanted to try to find a way to make it work. Ultimately, that issue and the workforce development drove them to the final two, which was Georgia and South Carolina, and ultimately to South Carolina. They're investing $500 million to start, creating 2,000 jobs to start. How fantastic would that have been to have had that here in Kentucky? Could have been, should have been. In the future, I believe those opportunities will be, but that's an exact perfect example of the type of thing you're talking about. But large and small, we miss out on opportunities. What we also don't want to have is, there's companies like Bosch, which employs over 1,400 people in this state. But they are struggling to expand, even though they love it here and want to expand, because they need to make sure they have a good supply of well-trained individuals. So this is a project that we are taking on for small companies and large companies alike. Let me get Kevin real quick, and then.
What sort of efforts are there going to be efforts to make sure this money is invested regionally and doesn't just go to other areas of the state?
I will tell you this, we are agnostic with respect to the location. It is a function of where is the best bang for the buck, back to the question. But some of the greatest needs, some of the greatest talent pool exists in those non-urban areas, because we have increasing numbers of men and women who have been laid off, unfortunately, especially in some of our eastern counties and western counties. The coal fields have turned thousands of well-qualified, intellectually capable, skilled workers out into the marketplace. And so there will be opportunity everywhere, but we're not going to drive this based on geography. I think that would be a mistake. The taxpayers deserve better than that. But already we know of opportunities that exist both in rural areas and in urban areas.
You've said often that you believe Kentuckians are in financial crisis, pension funds and other obligations that face the state. How can you justify then borrowing all this money to do a project?
I tell you, as a business person, how can we not justify it? How can we not invest in our workforce? There are two things that will separate us as a state from where we want to be in the future and from where we are relative to other states. If we want to be better than those states around us, if we want to be better than we are now, we must pour our resources into two key areas. And they are infrastructure and education. There's no question about it. There is no way we can be the best version of ourselves without pouring every cent we can into infrastructure and education. This is education at its core. Workforce development, training, educating our workforce. We have this obligation. This is the role of government. This is our responsibility. This is what we are going to do. It's why we have to get our financial house in order. It's why I care as passionately as I do about the underfunded pension system, for example, and the amount of waste and inefficiency and fraud that has existed for decades in our state, unfortunately. The reason we want to clean those things up is so that we have more money to pour into programs like this. But it's why we have this 9-member committee. It's why we will be so thorough. It's why the process is so rigorous, to ensure that we get a good return on the investment of the taxpayers' dollars. And we will only spend these dollars if the justification is there. If we do not find worthy applications, we will spend none of it. But as was noted by Secretary Heiner, there are quite likely multiples of this that could be well spent. We will find the best of the best. Remind me to step up and talk about that, if you would, and speak about where we are in the process. The question is, this 9-person committee, they're coming from various sources which have been predetermined, but I'll let you speak to that.
We'll have 4 members from the administration. I will chair the committee. We'll have Secretary Dunnigan will be on the committee as well, Secretary Ramsey, and Finance Secretary. We'll also have 3 appointments, private sector appointments by the governor, and then both House and Senate, Senate President, House Speaker will select one individual non-legislator to serve on the committee.
This is the same thing that was in the legislation that was passed.
That's right, matches 626.
Any other questions of Secretary Dunnigan, Secretary Heiner, Deputy Secretary Nemes? Oh, no, of course not. No, in fact, again, the way this works, I say of course not. Sadly, there's precedent in this state for issuing bonds before we know what we're going to spend the money on. That's not how we're going to operate. We are going to get the applications. We're in that 30-day pre-application stage right now. That will then lead into the full application process. And only if and when we come up with a justification to invest the taxpayers' money will we issue the bonds at that time to raise the monies in order to do this. And I will tell you very honestly, if not a cent of it is spent, it's because not a cent of it deserves to be spent, and that won't bother me. But I'll be disappointed if we don't find a way to wisely invest every single cent of this. This is over the biennium. This is of course part of the budget process that this is in there. It is my hope that, again, it's like anything. If we don't invest and make this work, then there would be no reason to do it again. But if we can make it successful, and I know that we will, then in 2 years when we're at the budget process again, it will be a no-brainer that we'll want to expand this program. Because as Secretary Dunnigan said, this is truly as fine a tool to have in the economic development toolkit as any state has in the country. Any other questions at all related to this? please.
Just to make a correction, it wasn't Secretary of Finance Cabinet on that 9-member board. It's the chair of the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board that we're working very closely with. And one other, in addition to what has been said, wanted to add, there is a local requirement, a local contribution required. We want to make sure there's skin in the game for the groups that are involved. It's a minimum of 10%, but obviously some areas of the state have already put together packages well above 50% that the state will be able to come in, assuming the project is meeting the goals of the program, and put in a small amount to allow projects to go forward that have been held back for lack of relatively small amounts of money.
Okay, we do need to wrap up. Any final questions? Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Stay tuned. Good things are coming.